So how you been, man?
Not bad, not bad. Just working a lot.
Yeah, I hear you.
How's the mic working for you?
Oh, it's amazing, and we are live now. So, ladies
Oh,
and
hey, there we
gentlemen, I
go.
am live with the one and only Al Marro. Al, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad I'm able to get you on right now.
Absolutely.
Lots to talk about. You've been helping people train for fights, you
Yep.
training yourself. A big post the other day that was a very emotional post, and then today you go on and show how you're helping children through boxing. So,
Absolutely.
to cut through the layers, let's start with the boxing and helping the children. Tell us a little
Sure.
bit how you got into that and why you're doing that and how everything's going with that.
Well, it's going really well. The program, over the years, it's just been growing and growing. But it started in 2008. My coach, who at one point was, he contended for the light heavyweight championship in boxing in the 70s, and he was chief sparring partner for people like Joe Frazier and Bob Foster, all those big guys, and basically he came to Utica and said, I want to make a free boxing program. And so in 2008, he started that here. And that's actually how I got started in this program when I was 12. And so I've been doing it for a while. Now that I'm one of the head coaches here, the goal is we're moving into a bigger room that just got redone in our facility. And we're actually going to put mats down, pad the walls, and everything. We got some funding coming in, hopefully, and we're going to make it a whole combat club. Not just boxing, but kickboxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, jujitsu, whatever it might be, and get these kids, out of trouble. Utica at one point used to be a very big booming city, and the crime rates were really low. But now crime rates are up, poverty is just really high, and we're just trying to give kids opportunities for something that they never thought that they could do before.
Yeah,
When I
absolutely. One more place for kids to get off the streets, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's the biggest thing about it. Like I had a bit of a troubled childhood, so when I found boxing and I realized how much it helped me, I see some of these kids that came in, they had a mouth, they were disrespectful. Now you're getting 4.0s in college or straight A's in high school and stuff. It's awesome. I love hearing about it.
Awesome. And then I see the post you had online the other day about you have the GoFundMe. Explain
Yeah.
how donations are going to help everyone.
So because Utica and because our program, it's been funded by my coach for all these years, and it's been now that I'm here too, I like to fund it. Sometimes we get grants because we're a nonprofit, but
Okay.
very rarely do we ever get anything because people will support things like basketball, soccer, volleyball, all those things, but they hear something like a violent sport like boxing or jujitsu, wrestling or something, they won't back it. So the way the GoFundMe would assist us is these kids don't really have much. So the goal is, for one, we want to give them, clothes. Honestly, a lot of them don't. They'll come in and working out in jeans and like their daily clothes and stuff, and they'll come in doing that for 3 days in a row. We want to get them clothes. We want to get them gloves, hand wraps, mouth guards, headgears, cups. We want them. They use our stuff, but some of the kids come up to us and say, I feel bad that I have to use the gym stuff all the time. It sucks. They'd rather have their own thing, so
Hmm.
we want to try and get them their own thing as much as we can so they can feel like that, they're earning something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think anytime, especially a child or a younger kid, adolescent, is able to earn something on their own, it definitely gives them that motivation inside and kind of gives them that fulfilling feeling that you don't get when you just get everything either handed to you or you just accept things all the time. It definitely a feeling that helps
Yeah,
encourage kids. So how
absolutely.
can
That's
people
the big thing.
how can people
Go
find the
ahead.
GoFundMe page? I saw you posted on Facebook. How else can they find to donate?
uh, so if you go on GoFundMe.com and type in free youth combat sport program, the first thing that pops up is ours. That's the easy way to do it. I shared it on Facebook. I'm having people share it all over the place. I can post a link in the comments of this as well. Uh, you know, it's um, it's pretty easily accessible. I'm trying to make it bigger and bigger as it goes. It's my first time doing a GoFundMe, so I don't know. We'll see. But as far as finding it, just GoFundMe.com and then just type in free youth combat sports program, and then you can donate there. And anything helps. It could be $1. We don't care. And once we get everyone's names, we're actually going to make a big pack and stuff. and we're gonna make a big plaque and stuff and put everyone's names on it and whatnot.
Awesome. Al, can you say that one more time? I believe you cut out, and I think my internet's kind of moving slow right now. I might actually end the live feed and just continue with just us, and then go from there. Maybe that would help with the feed.
Okay, sure.
So hold on one second. Let me
Um,
just cut this, and then we're gonna continue with just us. So we'll end the stream.
sure.
Sorry about that, man.
No, no worries.
All right, there we go. I think it's moving a little bit better now. Yeah, I know that my computer's getting old, so. But there we go. We cut the stream. We should be moving pretty solid right now. So sorry, say that again. What was the name
Right.
of the GoFundMe?
So if you go to GoFundMe.com and then put in free youth combat sport program, then it'll bring you right to our GoFundMe. And anything, anything helps, whether it's $1, $2, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, we're going to try and get like a plaque or a big board or something, write everyone who donated their names and stuff on it, and then post it on the wall of the gym somewhere is the goal.
Absolutely awesome. Hey, anyone listening to this podcast now or later, definitely go and donate. Help out Al. Help out the kids. That's who it's for. That's the
Absolutely.
future. As a guy who's commentating, writing, and reporting on the sports of combat sports, I think it's important to get the youth going, get them into the sport to help build the sport, so that we have, people to watch in the future. So it's important that we get the youth involved. Absolutely, and I love the fact that you're doing that, Al.
Absolutely. My goal is to pick up what my coach did. My coach started this years ago. I want to keep it going and going until I pass it on to the next guy. And my coach is 72 years old, still going. So who knows? Maybe I'll be 105 and I'll be passing it on to someone.
105, that'd be some good life right there.
I know it.
Awesome. And then you've been coaching a little bit too now. I see you helped out
Yeah.
the gentleman who fought. Oh, Jesus, I'm drawing a blank on his name. I'm horrible. Corey Norman at Cage Wars.
Yeah.
He came down and helped him with a few things. Tell us how that is
Right.
training with a guy who you once fought.
Well, Corey's such a cool dude. That's the thing about him. After we fought, he basically messaged me the day after. I was going to a wrestling tournament, and I had a wrestling tournament the day after we fought, and asked me how I was doing and stuff, making sure no one was hurt, as we always do. At least you should try to. And after that, Corey and I just started talking more and more. And one day he said, "Would you like to come out to Buffalo and work out?" I said, "Sure," because I knew he was very good at catch wrestling at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
he taught me a lot about working off the fence, because that was my biggest weakness. And so basically I said, "Hey, I tell you what, I'll trade knowledge of my striking ability if you show me some groundwork." And that's basically where it went from there. And I knew his opponent, James Carroll, was a kickboxer, I believe, a Muay Thai kickboxer with decent jiu-jitsu. I said, "Yeah, let me come out for a day." So I think I went out twice for that. I just said, "This is all you got to do. You'll beat him." He's a tall guy. I said, "Stick to the chest and shoot your uppercut, go for your single leg. You got him." And that's virtually what happened. But his team had been practicing that already. He's got a solid squad behind him.
Absolutely, that was a dominating performance by Corey Norman.
Absolutely.
To be honest, I expected that to be a potential fight of the night type fight. They call him Thor for a reason. James Carroll's a big guy, big reach, and to see Corey Norman dominate him so handedly, it was quite impressive. And I'm kind of excited to see what's in the future for Corey Norman, who's not really doing this. I know he trains almost full time, but he's a teacher too, so he's working full time. And this isn't like what he's basing his whole life around. He has a career already.
Right. I think with him, a big route for him might be, maybe, you can be one of those guys that stays amateur, and that's completely fine. But it's going to come to a point to where if Corey keeps beating guys like this at the amateur level, it's going to be very difficult to find fights. The reason why I know that is, although I haven't really had the same success in MMA quite yet, but in boxing, it was a nightmare. Once you got to over 40 wins in boxing, and maybe you lost once or twice, people will see you at the weigh-ins and say, "I ain't fighting that guy." It's something that's going to happen quite a bit. So with Corey, I would suggest to him, maybe after a while, it doesn't have to be like the highest profile fights, but Maybe go pro one of these days. I think he's good enough to make a really good run at it as well.
No, Al, boxing is something I never really gotten to chat with you about.
Right.
I know you have an extensive boxing background. Besides the obvious, you could grapple and stuff. What are the major differences that you see from amateur boxing and amateur MMA?
MMA to me is easier to access nowadays, just because it's a lot more popular amongst the crowd. Boxing at one point was the only combat sport people would really do. There was wrestling, but people never really considered that a martial art or a combat sport. It was still a school sport. Nowadays, you realize it's one of the most important things that you can have. I noticed training for boxing for me was physically more challenging, but MMA training was mentally more challenging because you have 1,000 more things you have to learn. Because I realized that fast. My first couple of fights, I controlled the pace with my hands, and I won because of my hands. But then I fight someone like Yuri Panvarov, who's was sick purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I fight Corey, who's one of the sickest catch wrestlers and whatever you can find. Then, the last fight I had, which I still thought I won, but I faced a really tall, lengthy dude, which I hadn't done yet, and he was good at kicking and keeping me at range before I got in and close it. I think there's a lot more in MMA as far as differences go that you just have to get down and learn a little bit better.
Yeah, you're like you said, you're focusing your attentions on 10 different things instead of
Yeah.
striking and focusing on footwork.
I also love how in MMA you have an opponent set up, whereas in boxing people don't often understand this. It's like wrestling. You go, you weigh in. If they have an opponent and your weight and age, you're fighting. That's who you're going to get. So there were times I would travel out to Buffalo, Niagara, or I'd go down to the city even, and there were times where I was like 15 years old, 190 pounds, and there weren't no one there to fight, because trying to find someone that age, that weight was a nightmare. For
Mm-hmm.
boxing. Wrestling, it was no problem because it's a school sport, but that was just a risk you had to take with boxing. So I liked with MMA, and they looked at me and said, "You are fighting this guy 2 months ahead of time. That's amazing. I love that. I don't have to worry about it. The only thing I got to worry about is if he pulls."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and which unfortunately happens far too often on the amateur level. Now I
Yeah,
get a lot of
absolutely.
people don't take it as a
Serious,
serious
yeah.
career sport or anything, but yeah, like you said, boxing. I know a couple people in the ringmasters or the Golden Gloves, were formerly
Yeah,
known as, and they're telling me they have to just be prepared,
yeah.
and on 3 days, no 4 days notice, they're getting told, hey, you're boxing in 4 days, be there or they're moving on without you. So definitely a different concept.
Because that was one thing Corey even told me, because he said, "Did you watch any film on Carol?" I said, "No." Why? I said, "Well, here's the thing with wrestling, because you wrestled with
Hmm.
wrestling, with boxing, you showed up and you might face that guy, you may face that guy, you don't know. So you don't have time to really prepare. You just have to go off your skill at that point in time. That's why when people ask, do I ever really watch film or go on a background of my guy? No, I don't find out what they're made of until I step in the cage. Like with Corey, I knew from watching his fight with my buddy Nick, he probably had a good couple throws. But to be honest, I thought I was going to steamroll him until I tied up with him. I'm like, you know, that's just what happened. And then I realized, wow, this guy's really good on the mat. And every time I go out and train with him, I learn 1,000 different things. So that's the thing. I never really take anyone. I always try and take myself higher than what they're doing because I have to go off. I'm better than them is all you have to think. And then it
Hmm.
turns out you might not be that night. So that's why with guys in MMA, did you watch this? You see that guy? Why are you paying attention to him when you should be paying attention to yourself? But that's just my thought.
Yes, yeah, I feel like I agree with you on so much, and the fact that MMA is such an interesting sport in the sense that you get people who want to watch film and they break down every little thing like you do in like football or any other sport, and then you get guys who don't even care, won't watch the film, just concentrate on themselves, and it's kind of like which works better. It's not like football where if you watch film, you're gonna improve no matter what.
And
Um,
what my answer to those guys that say, "Do you watch the film?" is like, even if you watch that, can you guarantee you can stop them from doing
hmm
what you're watching? You can't do it. You can't promise yourself that.
Yeah, you may know it's coming, but if they execute it, it doesn't matter.
Like I can practice for. You can watch Jordan Burroughs practice his double leg, but have fun stopping that, pal. Like, I mean, you can't. Like that's just something.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason he's an Olympic gold medalist. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Some people just have that natural gift and talent to turn the corner, blast through you, and get that the takedown or the position in whatever sport it may be, or land that
Yeah.
strike. So it's definitely interesting to compare the two sports. And I asked this because, and you're a perfect person to ask this because so many times you hear right now in the UFC, all these fighters want to take on multiple boxing matches, or they're calling out boxers, and boxers now are calling out MMA fighters, trying to do the cross promoting and make the big cha-ching. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to see because I don't think a MMA fighter is going to be able to handle a boxer in a boxing match and vice versa.
Right. People will often say, well, an MMA guy will have a better chance against a boxer than a boxer against an MMA guy, which, yes, to an extent you can agree, but people don't understand those multiple hours you put into learning jujitsu, wrestling, boxing, Muay Thai. All they're doing is throwing punches. That's it. That's why, like a perfect example, like, although I lost that bout, you saw a clear difference of how a boxing match would have gone with my buddy, now Mark Worthington. No, I won that fight. You know, he was a good kickboxer, good stuff like that. But when it came down, he wanted to try and box with me. It just didn't go his way.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, it's like I'm just going to change my stance and box with you. It's going to be a completely different fight. And that's the same thing. I've gone and trained. Corey I think, has really good hands as far as MMA goes, but with pure boxing, I still think I might have a leg up on him. But the moment he grabs my leg, I'm screwed. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's just how it works. It's just a different sport. It's a different style, and you have to adapt to those styles.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm laughing because you're talking about you fighting Mark Worthington, and you said he's a friend. Literally, almost everyone I've seen either fight you or met you absolutely loves you, Al.
I love him.
You're like one of the nicest guys. Every time first few shows I came to Cage Wars, I didn't really know anyone, and you just kept coming over, saying hi. And it's so great that you get guys like you come over and just gracious and welcoming, and it's always nice to get to know everyone. And you're definitely one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the sport and just in general in life.
My coach yells at me about that sometimes. Says I'm too nice. Yeah, but the way it worked is my coach always said we can be nice to them after the fight when we go visit them in the hospital. That's all he always says. That's basically what the whole gist is. Me personally, people that trash talk, people that do stuff, I'm gonna try and hurt you. There's no dispute about that. Relax. We'll get to that part, but for now, just let me shake your hands and be cool.
Absolutely. And well, what are your thoughts on, because right now Cage Wars 46 has got the super heavyweight fight coming up. You got Anthony Panic versus Bob Buskey, and I just interviewed Anthony Panic and just did a
I know.
buttload of trash talking. And Bob Buskey was trash talking on Facebook, and I'll be interviewing him on Saturday. What are your thoughts on that? And is that good for the sport? Is that good for the promotion, the fight? What are your thoughts on all that?
They'll get drunk together after the fight. Watch, I'd bet my life on it. You know what I mean? That's. I think maybe for ticket sales or something, you could say it's good, but at the end of the day, you're just wasting your air. To me personally, because I could be spending the time making a Facebook post, or I could be running a mile in the meantime. That's just what I think. I think the most extensive amount of trash talk I ever said, and it wasn't even really trash talk. I said, well, I think it was when you asked me predictions for Corey. I said either he's tapping me out or I'm knocking him out. Those were the only two things. Those trash talk, you could say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but as far as trash talking between those two, I think that's going to be a great fight. It's a really good clash of styles. I'm interested to see if Buskey can take Panic down. I'm interested to see if Panic can stop that. I'm also interested to see if Buskey can stand up with Panic. But I think that's why they talk so much, because they know that they got a fight ahead of them.
Absolutely. And then we're going to shift, a little gears here and talk about something you posted the other day that was kind of like emotional and touching to a lot of people who deal with something that they don't speak about all the time. And then you're brave enough to go on there, do a video and talk about it. And I liked kind of the way you celebrated almost as the sense of you beating it. And you don't see that often. Tell us your thoughts behind that.
So, for people that don't know the context, I made a video about my year-long battle with depression on March 3rd. Basically, the story behind it is I was diagnosed when I was 12 with clinical depression, and my childhood had a lot to do with it. I won't go into that,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have the best upbringing. I had a really hard time. 18, I was re-diagnosed again. Only this time they said I had some form of paranoia, and they said I had post-traumatic stress. And then at 21, there were days you just didn't want to wake up and do anything. And honestly, man, it's tough to say it like that, but there were days if I had not woken up, I would have been okay with it. Now, a year later, it's a completely different story. My girlfriend is the one that got me involved. She goes to Syracuse for psychology and neuroscience, so obviously she's on the topic of that stuff. And basically, we were driving up to the weigh-ins with Corey, and my girlfriend's like, "What's your problem? Why aren't you excited? Why aren't you happy?" I said, "I don't want to fight." Why not? Because I just don't want to. And I remember getting in the cage, and my first thought was, if I can get him out of here, I can get him out of here. But if I'm losing, I just got to take as less damage as possible. And I was just in a bad mood the whole day. I was doing all this, and that's when my girlfriend said, "I need you to start seeing help because I don't want you to become another stat," basically. Because I think people with depression,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, it has like a 60% suicide rate or something awful like that. And basically, I started seeking a therapist, counselors. On antidepressants. I just got my refill today. you know, I celebrate it because from the age of 12 on, really, I could cope with it with anger or sadness, and nowadays I can cope with it by my own willpower, and I can be happy about it. And that's why I'm happy with my life. Really, honestly, Kyle, it sucks to say, but for the first time, I'm happy where I am. There was a point in time, and there are thousands of people like me. I've had over 50 people message me since I put that video up, and it touches me that they put their trust in me. Because just a year ago, like I said, if God had said it's time for you to go, I would have been okay. Nowadays, I don't want to go anywhere. Life was
Mm-hmm.
great for the first time in my entire life. I wake up, I got an awesome job, I have an awesome family, I have an awesome girlfriend, I get to coach all these kids. I have so much that I look forward to. And a year ago, I had so much to look forward to. I just couldn't see it. So that's why I'm open to it now, is because I want people to understand once you see it that you need help, it's going to be better. And it does get better.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of people, don't realize that metaphorically light at the end of the tunnel isn't there,
Yeah.
but it
Right.
is there, and it
It's
takes
always
in all
there.
sorts of shapes and forms, but it's
Yes.
sitting there waiting for you. You just have to find it eventually, and I give you major props, man, to talk about something like that because it's not easy, and I think way more people deal with depression than I think anyone can really fathom, and
And that's one thing. I'm sorry to cut you off.
no, no,
That's one thing about that is it was difficult to speak of, just because you feel ashamed of it at first. You feel embarrassed. It's like, I'm just sad, and everyone else has problems, but you can't compare yourself to things like that.
hmm
What I tell people is the moment you're open about it, the moment you start to accept it. Once you start to accept it, the easier it is. That's what I tell people all the time. So it becomes easier to talk about. So now, not only is it easier for me, but if someone asks me how is your depression today, I tell you, it's horrible, it's good. I'm handling it. I'm open about it because I want people to help. And I want to help others. If you're having a bad day, call, stuff like
hmm
that. You got to be open about it, or else it's going to become more and more difficult for you to talk about, to be open about, and you have to be open to accept it.
absolutely, and I think everyone's different, obviously, but like little
Absolutely.
things will trigger different emotions and make you feel different ways on different days. So, and it could be the smallest thing or the biggest thing. It doesn't matter. It just
Absolutely.
kind of changes your mood, and it's definitely interesting. And like I said, props to you to talking about it. But
Thank you.
to switch to a little more uplifting, thing. Sorry, I don't know how else to say.
No,
Like
no, I
because I know
get
because
you.
I'm in the same boat as you are. I totally understand where you're coming from when you talk about that stuff. YouTube though, I could put YouTuber as part of your of who you are. I put MMA
Right.
fighter, coach, YouTuber, because you got this YouTube channel going that you put a little money into it. You started going, but you just keep hustling. And I looked the other day, and I'm like, because I watch a lot of your videos, and I'm like, damn, his one video's at like 12,000 views.
I know. I saw that this morning. I'm like, what? Because my friend Schmidt said, you have like 12K viewers. I'm like, no, I don't. And I looked, I'm like, get the hell
Yeah,
out of
that's
here.
impressive. I think you only have like 400, man. You haven't had a channel long, but you only have
No,
like
a year.
400 followers or something like that.
Yeah, it's cool though. That's the one that I made it just because my counselor told me you need to find something that will keep you, what makes you truly happy. And the first thing I said was I love buying boxing gloves because I had a bad buying and spending habit. I was, I made a lot of impulse
Hmm.
buys because it made me feel better. So she said, well, he said rather, well, instead of just buying gloves all the time, why don't you, make a channel about it? I'm like, yeah, but who the hell watches boxing gloves and stuff? So, and then I started watching this guy named Fit to Box from the UK. There's this other dude, CS Squared Boxing, and he does reviews and stuff, and they're awesome. And it was actually cool because today Fit to Box actually followed my channel and commented and said this channel is awesome. It's better than mine is in some areas. I'm like,
That's awesome.
whoa. So I started thinking, I'm like, whoa, this dude got me into it. So I basically sat down one day and said, I'm just gonna make a YouTube channel, and it's come leaps and bounds. I think, so a year actually. I think at the end of March is when I started it. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, I absolutely love it because you think about it. You don't like you said reviews. Who's gonna watch it? But I personally go on YouTube and look for reviews for almost anything I purchase nowadays.
Right.
Like you think about it, there's a video for almost everything. So I'm like, oh, what do I want to get? And if you're in boxing and you want to get boxing gloves and you want to see which ones breaking quicker or feel more comfortable, why
Right.
not see someone who's a boxer and see how they feel like about these gloves and what to like,
Right.
what not to like, and what to look for. It's a great concept.
I'm also a stickler for detail. Like I love those other channels I mentioned. I
Hmm.
watch every single one of their videos. I like every single one of their videos, but sometimes it'd be like it has high density foams in the knuckles. Like, well, what the hell does that mean? I don't know what the
Hmm.
high density foam. So you have to explain like what's it made of. How did they make it? Who's it for? Stuff like that. So that's one thing that they always say is that it's very thorough. And my videos might be like 20 minutes long for a pair of boxing gloves, but shit, if you're gonna drop $300 for a pair of boxing gloves, you better know what you're gonna buy. That's
Hmm.
that's what I tell people all the time.
And to know about that, that takes research and time to get into it and divulge yourself into like you're saying what kind of foam these gloves are made out of and all. It
Right.
takes a lot more time than I think people realize than just a 20-minute video. 20
Oh,
minutes is probably the
absolutely.
least amount of time you put into all that entire video.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, the editing portion is easy, but like just doing the flat out research and breaking the gloves in because some of the guys are even guilty of it. And I know it because you can see the way that the glove shapes and bends. They just take it out of the box and then start reviewing it. They don't use it or anything like these gloves do this, these gloves do that. It's just, yeah, but you never used them before, you know? So that's why I have to break in my gloves for at least 2 weeks before I even bother doing a review on them.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, what are you gonna buy a car and review it before you drive the thing?
I've had it for 3 days. It drives great. Everything's great for the first couple of weeks to
Yep.
a month, man. But you gotta break them in because I've had gloves that felt great coming out of the box. 2 weeks later, they feel like dog shit. That's just what it
Hmm.
is. But it's
Absolutely.
a very weird niche. But I also do technical breakdowns and stuff. I like the reviews the most.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what type of videos do you have coming? Is there a specific type that you like to do the most?
I like doing the gear reviews the most just because I can talk for hours. I love editing it and I love seeing people's input. But I like the technical breakdowns because I I know I'm only 22. I'd like to think I have some extensive background because I've been doing it for a long time. But there are some tiny things in maybe the 3 or 4 technical videos I put up that people never did. But to me, it's like, isn't that kind of obvious? But
Hmm.
you never stop to think about it. Like the next video I want to do is why Deontay Wilder's legs were gone. And no, it's not because of a 40-pound costume, but it's for why you want to tag to the ear. People are like, well, why would you want to tag to the ear? Oh, there's a bunch of these fun little nerves. You got hairs in your ear that tend to go haywire when you hit your ear. Your legs go. That's just what happened. So I want to do that video next.
Oh,
So
that's an
we'll see.
interesting one because I love I the excuse of I had my what was it? The
Costume.
gear was too heavy, and then I saw someone put like, oh, Shredder had the same uniform and didn't have a problem. There's all these different comparisons. It was awesome, and
And
uh,
Wilder himself trains in his 60-pound vest every day. So I don't know what he's talking about, man.
yeah, he said that on the Rogan show. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
I'm curious to see hear about this one because I'm curious to I didn't even know that getting hit in the ear and stuff like that and
Well,
how it
watch the fight
affects.
with Worthington. Watch the fight with Worthington. Not once. I broke his nose. I think I broke his nose or I bloodied it. The reason why is you hit to the nose, it's connected to the eyes. You blind the person for a second. You step off to the ear, hit the ear. You might not concuss them through the brain, but you're going to concuss their body through. You'd be surprised. Next time you go up and walk, cover both your ears and try walking a straight line. You won't be able to do
Well, no, anyone who's getting pulled over for drinking and driving, don't do that.
it. Absolutely.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to try that later on. See how many
You, you'll
straight
notice a
lines I
slight
walk.
you'll notice a slight misstep. There's a bunch of these funny parts in there, and people are like, "Oh, well, Wilder, he didn't shatter his eardrum." It's like, look, you don't have to shatter it. You just need to pop it good enough to where it's going to suck.
And you're a wrestler. Being a wrestler, like if you hit in the face, it's much different when you're on the ground grappling because you could
Yeah.
kind of compensate, balance by you're using all four limbs at that point, and you're on the ground. So
Yeah.
it's a little different than standing and trying to avoid getting punched in the face.
And that's why, like when you go for a deep claw or a deep half, I always try to put my forearm over the ear so I can control that side of the body because people are like,
Hmm.
does it make that much of a difference? It's like, I'm telling you, walk with both of your hands over your ears and tell me if you walked a perfectly straight line without trying. You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
Absolutely. So they already Wilder already invoked that rematch clause. How do you think that fight's gonna go the third time?
I hope Wilder wins because I love that guy, but he's gotta listen to Mark Breland more than he does JD's just because I love those guys, but Mark Breland, he's the one that's going to show him how to outbox the boxer. I think Wilder needs to stop loading up more. I think he needs to throw more hooking shots and more uppercuts. Just because all he does is just straight jab, jab straight, jab straight, and it is readable. Obviously, he's fast. He's probably the best athlete in boxing history, in my opinion, because that's basically where he got. He
Hmm.
got that far off his athleticism alone. To be honest with you, um, but I think that fight would go a lot better if Wilder decided to stick to the forearms and started to stick to the chest a little bit more and beat the joints instead of just trying to close the show with one shot.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm curious to see how that goes. I was kind of rooting for the American as well.
Yeah,
I just keep the belt in the United States is always nice.
yeah.
But that should be an interesting one because how is Tyson Fury going to handle all this fame that he's getting? And people
Yeah,
are starting to put him on the level like greatest ever type situation.
yeah.
But
He
people throw
he.
the goat word around for everything nowadays.
I know it. I mean, I'll start considering someone of how great they are maybe 5 years after they retire. You know what I mean? Like you look in hindsight, and the reason why I say that is because Floyd Mayweather Jr. retires, and while he was fighting, he was garbage. He wasn't. All
Hmm.
he does is hug people. All he does is run. And then 2 years later, when he's not fighting, next thing you know, he really was one of the best fighters ever. That's insane. He was the best defensive guy. No one was saying that while he was fighting, though.
True.
You know what I mean?
True.
So that's what I always wait for about 3, 4, 5 years after they retire. What will people say?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like a guy like Tom Brady. Every Jet fan in the United States hates him.
Hates him.
He'll be the goat though eventually.
Like I have my girlfriend. Her dad is a diehard Red Sox fan, and apparently, from what my girlfriend said, is that when Jeter retired, he said he was one of the best damn ball players ever. You know what I mean? And he was
Hmm.
Jeter's a Yankee, so you know what I mean. It's you gotta wait until they're done.
Absolutely. So Al, what's next for you? I saw you signed up for a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yeah.
Is that where you plan on just doing some jits? You plan on getting back in the MMA cage, boxing ring? What's next for you?
Boxing might be hard just because of the amount of bouts I have.
Hmm.
But I will change weight classes probably because last time I boxed, I did box 3 heavyweight matches. I hate heavyweight in boxing; it sucks. But jiu-jitsu, I just want to do this to see if my mind is better because even the last jiu-jitsu tournament I did, which was actually Saratoga in July, I think, I just wasn't in the right spot. Not that I'm making excuses for losing, but I just remember I was beating myself up. I wasn't doing anything. I asked to be on Cage Wars for April 10th. I know I think they're still looking. I want to fight that day really bad at 205
Is there
or
anyone you want to
225.
fight?
Uh I know there's this dude from Vermont. His name was Jared Rich. He was 3-0. I mean, I know my record says 3-4, but realistically, besides my first fight, I fought everyone that's been ranked in the top 5 of the Northeast.
Yeah.
So I always tell people I'm still, my ranking might be low, but I fought these best guys and I gave them the best fight they ever had. I personally think, I think the only person on the list that might have had a tougher fight was Corey against Hamdi Abdel Wahab, to be honest with you. Because that guy's just Olympic wrestler and stuff. That might be a little bit of a tougher fight, but I like to fight him. He's from Vermont because Vermont's starting to blow up a bit. I'd like to fight him. There's a couple other guys. What's it called? From Vermont that are doing pretty good. I'd also like to try a kickboxing match one of these days. I've never done kickboxing.
No?
I did an exhibition.
Okay.
I did an exhibition when I was like 15. It was at another gym, and when I was with MMA, we went to that gym or whatever, and we did like an exhibition against some guy, and I kicked the shit out of him, but that was just because I boxed.
Mm-hmm.
But that was such a long time ago. I wouldn't count that as anything. But I don't know. I would hope for April 10th. There's a show May 10th. I really don't like fighting for anyone other than Cage Wars, to be honest. And it's not just because I'm close to Cage Wars. It's not just because I love Tim and that they've always been there. It's just I like it better than any other promotion that I've ever.
They put on like a professional level show,
right? And
for amateurs.
I don't have to worry about bullshit with them. That's one thing. The other promotion I fought for, I love them. I'm not throwing shade. I'm not doing nothing of those lines. I love that promotion, which will remain nameless. But whenever I fight for them, there's always some problem. The venue's outside and it's freezing cold, or it's raining outside, or I'm fighting in some guy's backyard and the refs aren't fair and the officiator. Like last fight, I fought a dude that fights out of Broome County, but he trains out in Syracuse. Referees from Syracuse. All the judges are from Syracuse. I got hit in the nuts twice. They never called it. I won that fight. I always say people, I won that fight. I don't care what nobody tells me. I lost the last round for maybe the last minute and a half, but even then I got up and started busting his ribs to pieces, but yeah, I lost. You know what I mean? So that I don't like running into that at all.
Yeah, no, I unfortunately, like, you see it more often than not. Like, you don't want to see it, you don't want to believe it, but I cover so many different types of promotions and whatnot in the area, and I see it far too often where these refs, and most people won't even have a clue, that these refs will train, either have or do or train some way or have a connection to a fighter, or the judges from like way back in the day or whatever it may be.
Right.
And it affects the scoring, and it sucks because like when it's a real close fight, I'm like, I think that person won. And I'm objective. I have no favoritism. I don't care who wins the fight. But then all of a sudden that person gets the win. It's like, how do you see that 30-27?
Right.
So I agree with you. I think sometimes it happens far too often.
The one thing I will say, like perfect example of why I like Cage Wars is Nels Larson, right? Owns Team Jacal, and he'll have a Jacal fighter. Nels will leave the room. And he will not come back until the fight's done. He doesn't sit by the table. He doesn't sit in the locker room. He leaves and like waits out in the hallway of the casino and waits for someone to tell him it's done. I love that.
Yeah, because absolutely.
I've asked him before. I said, I jokingly said I nudged him on the elbow. I'm like, you ever, persuade them? He's like, no. He's like, I would never do something like this. My fighter's gonna win. He's gonna win because he's better.
And it's great though. That's you need that type of integrity.
Absolutely, and that's the thing I love about Cage Wars, because some people might badmouth. I think it's just because it's successful, but not once have I've never seen favoritism by Cage Wars. Even like anyone can ask. I am extremely close to Tim Rankins, Slim, as we all know him. But if I were to say, hey Tim, you should put something in for me, he'd tell me I'll never fight for Cage Wars again. He's one of those guys. That's what I mean is I love Cage Wars because they shoot straight. That's it.
Absolutely, and speaking of that, like that is one promotion that I could definitely say I've never seen favoritism from the referees or the judges or anything. The USMTA, Ed Kinner, everyone involved in that crew does a phenomenal job, and there's absolutely zero favoritism. There's a couple of fights I disagreed with the scoring by one or two judges, but it's amateur. They're human, and they'll see things differently than I did. So especially on
Absolutely.
the angle they're on. So, but there was no. It wasn't because oh, this person's out of this gym and knows this person or anything like that. It's just
Right.
the scoring. That's all. But you get that on
Absolutely.
all levels.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's amateurs. Who the hell
Mm-hmm.
cares? You're going to fight a million more times.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Now, on the amateur level, how many fights do you think a fighter should have before they turn pro? Like boxing, you said you had 40 something fights, or plus north of 40.
Mhm.
On an amateur MMA level, how many do you believe they should have before they turn that professional level? Because it's like a fine line, I think. I see some guys have one or two turn pro. Now I think they have to have five in New York before they turn pro. But how many do you want to have and take bad damage before you turn pro and not make any money and like kind of your career shortened because of it?
So you actually hit the nail on the head right there. Taking bad damage. If you're taking bad damage in the amateurs, you shouldn't turn pro. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion. I don't think you could put a number on it because that's hard. I think someone like a good example, Brendan Kennedy, hasn't really been hurt all that bad yet. He had a really tough fight against Andrew Geiser. Almost got caught in an armbar. Wound up coming on top and catching him with an armbar. Someone like that, who Brandon technically doesn't have a belt in jiu-jitsu and tapped out a brown belt, a legitimate brown belt from one of the best schools in my opinion, New York State in Evolution Grappling Academy, and it's a time for him to move on. You have to see if it comes to a point to where you're just thrashing people in the amateur ranks. That's when you have to move on. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's a point where my coach sat down with me after my, I think I was 18, 19 years old. It was my 40 something bout. I think it was like 4, 5, 6 bouts in a row. I got TKOs in the first round in boxing. He says, I think it's time we start looking at the next level because they're not giving you competition anymore. That's when I think you should turn pro. When it becomes too easy in the amateurs, it's time to move on.
I agree 100% because you see like you said, you see guys thrash through everyone, and then you see guys who Bellator tried to put someone on their undercard as a professional that was 0-16. Like I don't
Yeah,
like the things that people do sometimes blows your mind. That
right.
got squashed because of all the outrage about it, but and then you get guys who thrash through everyone, and then they hit a wall in their first MMA, first pro fight.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because um, pros are just different. I don't care what anyone says. I've had teammates that went from phenomenal amateurs to pros in boxing. I had I can't remember his name, but I just started. I was 13 or 14. I was 2 years in with him. I think he was undefeated, like 33-0 in the amateurs, and I think as a pro he has an 0-3 record or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something along the lines with him that just he couldn't trigger it in pros. A perfect example. There was a guy in the 1980 something Olympics, undefeated amateur, won the Olympic gold medalist, knocked everyone in the Olympics out, and then goes pro, has 10 good wins, and I think his record stands at like 23-40 now. You know what I mean? Like he got destroyed because it's just different. Mike Tyson lost the amateurs, but did better in pros. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's just who the type of person are. You might see someone like me. I wasn't the best amateur in MMA. I'm a lot better in boxing. I had a lot more success in boxing. But I might go to pro and just start thrashing people. You never know. That's just how it works.
Absolutely, and I think it's a matter of when you hit your stride,
Right.
maturity level, and how you take it once you get to a certain level. And some guys learn from their defeats as an amateur, and then evolve as that pro. And then some guys who do so well in the amateur level never evolve as a pro. So there's so many different factors into it. I find it fascinating and interesting to see where everyone starts and then where they end up and stuff like that. So
Well,
always
also
interesting.
going back to it was a while ago, but you asked who else I wanted to fight. I wanted to fight James Carroll, the guy that Corey just fought.
Okay.
I think he's going back down to middleweight though.
Oh,
But
is he? Okay.
yeah, well, I think it'd just be fun because this might sound like a cheap way out, and I'm not bashing him at all. I want to fight someone that's not going to keep me up at night anymore. You know what I mean? Like between Corey, Yuri. Let's see. The I lost to Tim Kronk, which I still disagree with the decision to stop it. I tripped. If you watch the fight, I slipped, but that's a different story. Mike Walter, if you're listening to this, I still love you, even though you stopped that fight. And then I had I lost to Yuri. I lost to Corey. I lost to Billy Brennan, which I still thought I won against Billy. But, you know, like I said, every single person I fought is either I think Corey is number one or Yuri's number one in light heavyweight, and now Billy's number 4. So everyone I fought has been ranked in the top 5. So if I fought someone, you know, a little bit lower, just so I could maybe see if I have improved without running into a brick wall first, that'd be great.
Understandable. Understandable.
But I'm not trying to bash James at all. I think I mean, now my confidence is back, so my head can't fit through the door sometimes. But, you know, I think I'd beat James.
Absolutely. So, hey, where you at? You look like you were like, you said you're home, but you look like you were in a gymnasium. Do you got a gym in your home?
Well, I mean, I live upstairs from where I work, but I'm the athletic director at my place. So yeah, I was supervising a basketball game. My team won the conferences, which is, or no, we win Tuesday, but we won today. That's why it was really loud, because we just won. We got
That's awesome.
3. Yeah, we got a buzzer beater 3. I personally hate basketball, but I love watching this when I know I can.
Yeah, well, when you see a buzzer beater 3, you don't see that every day. Those are awesome.
No. We were behind by 1 and we scored it with like 3 seconds to go. I'm like, yes, I was screaming. I was so happy. That's why I said, can I call you back in a minute? Because I was jumping up and down.
That's awesome. Well, I'm hoping to see you at Cage Wars. I know you always come to watch the shows, even if you're not participating.
I'll be there. I'll be wrapping people's hands. I think I'm not sure as of yet, but I think Panic wanted me to help out corner him that fight. I'm not sure yet. So that'd be interesting. I'd hate to corner against Bob, but I love Bob. I love everyone from Chicago. But if someone asks if they need help, I'm there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know you're always one of those guys who fill in whenever Cage Wars has a guy that's kind of, I guess you could say, independent. So it's always pretty cool. What is it like, though, when you are cornering someone that you maybe never trained with before?
You just tell them what they have to do to make it work. You know, that's really someone. Oh shit. You know, that's one thing. Sorry, someone just texted me something.
No worries.
One thing I can tell people is, if you have confidence in your coaching ability, you don't need to know the person. Like with Panic in his last fight, I told him, I said, he didn't really do a whole lot of it, but you know, when I told him, I said, you're tall and you have an extremely long reach. He has like an 82-inch reach. I said, stick your damn jab. I said, the straight shots will be there. Don't be throwing no Superman punches. The first thing he does, he goes out there with Superman punch. That's why I love that guy. I love talking to him. But as far as coaching someone that you don't really know, just, take your time. Work with them as much as they'll work with you.
Awesome. Anything else you want to throw out there? Anyone you want to recognize or shout out to? And how can we donate once again to the to help out the kids?
If you go to GoFundMe.com and enter free youth combat sport program, you will find that. It's a picture of my goofy mug along with a bunch of other kids in a boxing ring. Anything helps. Whether it's $1 or even just a support letter, even we'd be happy with. Like I said, anyone that donates, we'll make a big poster and a plaque and put it on our wall in the gym, and we'll keep adding to that. As far as everything else goes, I'm just happy that my life is turning around. I'm really excited for this Sunday for Grappling Industries. I might actually be in Bob Bushty's bracket, believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because there was no one in the 230 and below, because I'm about 227 right now. I'm lighter than I've been in a long time too. But basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to weigh in with my clothes on and do 230 and above. So I have to face off against 2 of my teammates, some dude from Atlas, and I think Bosky's in my no-gi bracket.
Okay, interesting.
So I'm excited. I love that. I know he's going to talk mad shit. I'm going to talk it right back when it comes to Bob.
You're gonna have to get some video of your matches.
Yeah, I'm not putting that out there. I don't want to give no one unfair advantage, But but what was it? If I had to say one more thing, I just hope I can fight April 10th.
Awesome. Well, I hope to see you in the cage. If not, it will always be a pleasure to see you on the sidelines. Al, always a pleasure chatting with you, man.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
Thank you.
Pleasure talking with you too.
Thank you, and wish you the best of luck, brother.
Thank you. I'll see you around.